8:04 Central African Time. Hello, Sunny Bonani. Welcome to BrakeAway Racing League. Welcome to top tier action. Welcome to the Lusail International Circuit. As you can see, we have a decent contingent of drivers here to stake their claim on a decent sprint race as well as an upcoming feature race to boot. So we do hope that you will enjoy the action that we have set here for you today. We have Chilean Noble in the comment section. Lancelot is also here. It is always good to see all of you here in the comments. And we're looking forward to a beautiful sprint race showcase from some of our top tier drivers here. It is 10 laps in the sprint and then 29 for the feature race proper. In the BrakeAway Racing League, whenever we do have a sprint race, it is a reverse order of the grid. So the lower you are in the driver's standings, the higher your starting position in the sprint race. So we'll just take a quick look of what that entails for this upcoming race. So, Shakes, that's you. It's great to know. Now we know your YouTube ID, but it's, of course, been great to see the likes of Shakes, who put on an entertaining race in our Tier 3 race on Tuesday. Similarly, last night we had a very, very entertaining Tier 2 race. Definitely one of the best races of the season thus far. And we're hoping for a similar situation for the top tier. Now, as things currently stand, Tabo T92 makes their debut this season for McLaren. They have not raced as yet. So Tabo T92 is likely to start at the front, which isn't good news for the rest of the grid. He is wickedly fast. And Guaco D-Wax is second from the bottom, so he will start towards the front. Romeo is third from bottom. He's currently 18th. And Nebo is 17th in the standings. Sun Hashira, Tepiso, and Man Ray make up those other positions. All of those drivers have yet to claim points except for Man Ray. Lap 1, it's Tabo T92 leading us off for the sprint race in Qatar. D-Wax has stolen the march on Tabo T92, who is struggling, rumbling down in the midfield. That's in turning side. D-Wax holds the P1 spot from Tepiso, and it looks like Seppo Temba has gained a couple of positions. Mandla is in that P4 spot. Tabo T92, he started at the front of the grid, now has to contend with a fight back from P5. He is currently giving Loveness a lot to think about. It is very, very tight as they now make their way through this initial sequences of corners. We're going to take a very, very quick look at how positions have changed since we started. You don't expect a lot of drivers to come into the pits with just 10 laps of racing to go. The biggest mover, Seppo Temba, look at that, gaining 5 places since the start. Mercurial Caesar had gained 4. That becomes 3 as he looks to fight his way out from the back of the pack. Decent set of moves for him. Tepiso has overtaken Ngawago, aka D-Wax, who we're going to hop on board with now. As you can see, Seppo Temba is making many moves up to P3. Seppo Temba goes wheel to wheel with D-Wax. They pump wheels a little bit, and Seppo Temba is forced to go off wide. And as he does so, Mandla takes that P3 spot. It is absolutely crazy sequences here in this start of this race. Here comes Mercurial Caesar looking to slice through the field as we come into turn number 16. Seppo Temba made a little bit of contact almost with Mandla. Mercurial Caesar overtakes the both of them. Mercurial Caesar, the Mercedes superstar, now up to P3. Where's his teammates? Championship leader Don Ravico. Meyer down at P10. As things currently stand, he's got his work cut out for him. It's Tepiso from Egawaco D-Wax from Mercurial Caesar. Here comes Caesar on the attack versus D-Wax. Now through turns 1 and 2. Oh, did Caesar make a little bit of contact there? I do wonder. We will hop on board instead with D-Wax, who is attacking Mercurial Caesar. D-Wax went off track, was overtaken by Donovan Laka, and Seppo Temba can barely keep up with so much action that is taking place at this particular point. As you can see, most of the drivers have selected those medium compound of tires. Mercurial Caesar taking no prisoners and is absolutely ruthless at this particular point, having gained a total of 10 places since the start of this race. Sensational stuff. Tabo T92 is struggling all the way down at the bottom of the standings. Mercurial Caesar is hunting down the race, leading Tepiso as things currently stand. As you can see, Don Ravico has just overtaken Igawaco, aka D-Wax. Seppo Temba is up down to P4, and D-Wax is fighting back versus Don Ravico. I would have you know, Don not having his way here in this sprint race. It is still so tight. Look at the track map. They're all snaking along, with the exception of Manry and Tabo T92, who have sadly slipped all the way down towards the bottom two running drivers. D-Wax could not keep up with Don Rabico, and there's a half slipping into the pits. It looks like Mandla, who may have taken some early damage here. They've only just begun the third lap, as Mercurial Caesar is the quickest driver on track. 1 minute 23.972. That time may yet tumble before all is said and done. The DRS has been enabled at this particular point, so we're going to switch over to the view which shows us the tire compounds. It's a full house of medium running tires here. As you can see, Zoltal on the inside of what was, I believe that was turn 3. Zoltal got that move done. There's a slow moving car. It's Django, who has slipped all the way down to P10 right now. Perhaps having taken so much contact, he's broken that front left wing end plate. So things aren't looking very, very good for the potential championship contender in the form of Smirch Django. Now running pretty much, in formation with their teammates, who is inching closer and closer to that particular action. Back to the front we go. Mercurial Caesar has made sensationally light work of this entire field. Remember, the ending order in the sprint race determines where they will all start come the start of the feature race. On board we go with Mercurial Caesar now in towards the final few corners. They're heading towards turn number 16, which is the last of this track. Tepiso defends the inside line, tries to make that Ferrari as wide as possible, and he moves to the right, trying to break the slipstream of Mercurial Caesar. Of course, got to be careful not to weave too much. Mercurial Caesar darts onto the outside line of that Ferrari. Oh, will they make a little bit of contact? They almost touch wheels. Tepiso still has the line in the run towards turn number 2, and Mercurial Caesar, try as he might, will have to bide his time and go for that overtake at another later part of this race. But as he does so, remember, his teammates, his nemesis, his competitor, Don Rabico, has now found his way into the reckoning for those places to potentially win this race outright. Jonathan Lacka will not make it easy for Don Rabico at all. Now running in that P4 spot, Mandla earns a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Sadly for Mandla, I believe that was could have been his second pit stop. No, that was Mandre, who had pitted a little bit earlier, I believe. So Mandla sadly earning a 5-second time penalty, which will cost him at this particular point. Mercurial Caesar doesn't want to wait until the end, or rather the main straight. It seems like he may yet be going for it much, much earlier. Haas is hassing, so says Billy Hendricks in the comment section. Can barely keep my breath. So much action all over this track. Let's hop on board with Don Rabico, who has the front row seat to this four-way battle for the potential race win in the sprint race. Jonathan Lacka trying to keep up the pace, trying to keep up the momentum. Mercurial Caesar on the outside of Tepiso. This time around, he's got that move done. Tepiso is slipping and sliding. He may go from P1 to P4 come the end of the first sequences of corners. And yes, he's down to P4. They make contact. Tepiso and Don Rabico both slow each other down on the exit of the first corner. And now, who is going to inch closer and closer? Zoltal might have an opportunity. Tepiso is nudged and goes completely off the track. Don Rabico tries to pick up the pieces as he will now have to fight back from 4.8 seconds behind the top three in this sprint race. We're only halfway through, but there's so much action all over. Don Rabico's tires are burning. Don Rabico sends it into the wall, and he crashes out of this race, bringing out the safety car. Breathless action here in the top tier of BrakeAway League Racing. It was contact between this man, Tepiso, and the championship leading Don Rabico that resulted in that huge crash that we've just seen. Tepiso squeezed him out, says Billy Hendricks. Sir Lancelot barely believing what we've just seen. Those tires were screaming as Don Rabico found his way into the wall in the earlier part of this track. We will now see what that means for the rest of this sprint race. Liddy expects to see Don Rabico in the comment section before too long. Sadly, Don Rabico is out, and surely Don Rabico, we commiserate with that moment. He is unimpressed with how his sprint race turned out. He was fighting his way to catch up to this man, Mercurial Caesar, the teammate, the nemesis, who had fought his way all the way to the front. It wasn't easy, and Mercurial Caesar now leading this race as the safety car leads the pack around the Lusail International Circuit. Such a fast-flowing track, medium to high-speed corners dominating most of this circuit, and as you've seen, it can be perilous in certain conditions. Don Ravico, the first casualty of the day by way of DNF. Mercurial Caesar leads from Donathan Laka in that P2 spot. Seppo Temba, what a day for him. P3 as things currently stand, just to get a sense of how things have changed thus far. 11 places gained for Mercurial Caesar. Donathan Laka has gained 7, Seppo Temba 5, Zotal a net gain of 6 positions. Tapiso was going along very, very well until the leading pack went full attack mode there on the main straight, as we saw just a couple of minutes ago. Nkawako Dwex sadly has dropped 4 places since the beginning of proceedings in this sprint, and Sage Figure of Speech is in P7. Loveness is currently 8th, having lost 1 place essentially since the start of proceedings. Manray, not having such a great day out here, has lost 4. A net 4 places since the start of this sprint. Smirch Django also ran into some trouble. We saw that damaged wing that the McLaren driver took on earlier on. He has since exchanged it for a fresh set, and of course we will note he's on an advantageous soft tire compound. Don Ravico unimpressed with the quality of the driving that has been displayed here today. As you can see in the comment section, Mandla trying to catch up. Mandla has caught up so to the rest of the pack here. So effectively, because of those 2 pit stops, I believe Mandla at this point has been lapped. 3 pit stops for Mandla. Nightmare scenario as they almost make contact. Do Mandla and Man Ray in the middle of this now bunched up pack. We do expect race control to give the word that we will go racing here in Qatar once again. Well, Don, you could tell us in the comments what exactly happened there. We saw that moment of contact between you and Zapiso, and then we were watching your attempt to recover, and we saw you go into the wall there. So perhaps Don Rabico could elaborate a little bit in the comment section. I see a lot of your responses to this action-packed race here in Qatar. I tell you what, Tier 3 was not short of high drama, intensity, action. It was a similar scenario in Tier 2 last night as well. Azuri expecting Don Rabico to not to take that line down and to go straight to the stewards for that. Sir Lancelot earlier on was saying it hasn't been such a great return for Tabo T92, only the first appearance this season, mired down in that P11 spot. The safety car is coming in at the end of this lap, so says race control. They're now making the way towards turns 14 and 15, and we will go racing once again to pick it up from lap number 8. So we will have 2 laps of hard racing. Mercurial Caesar wastes no time. Here comes the final corner, absolutely sending it. The gap between those drivers in the lead about 0.6 of a second, possibly building, but maybe not so fast. Because here comes Teppo Temba also attacking Donathan Laka for that P2 spot. Zotal holds his line, holds on to P4, and he has eked out a bit of a gap to Tapiso, who has slipped behind by a factor of about 1.1 seconds. Here they come now, slaloming through the initial sequences of corners. They're going to make their way now through the double right of turns 4 and 5, and then slam the brakes into the hairpin of turn 6, which is, of course, that left-hander. There's a yellow flag for a slow-moving driver. It might be Loveness all the way at the back of this race, which has been restarted, and Loveness opts to retire, perhaps not not trusting their prospects to be able to recover adequately. We're on board now with the P4 running Zotal, who is trying to stay in touch of the leading pack. Mercurial Caesar has eked out a 1.4-second advantage at the restart of this race. And as the champion C-Clay, former champion C-Clay notes, it is going to be the nemesis of Team Mercedes, the two nemesis contenders, if you will, starting both at the front and the back as Man Ray racks up a time penalty, becoming the latest driver to do so. We're going to hop on board with the driver just in front of Zota, that is Teppo Temba, who's got a fight on his hands versus Donovan Laka, struggling to keep up with the pace of Mercurial Caesar. That gap now 2.1 seconds. And Teppo Temba has used up a decent amount of his battery power. As you can see on that steering wheel, that yellow bar is definitely less than 50% of battery power remaining, and we will see how his fight with Donovan Laka will fare for that P2 spot. Right now, holding his own, maintaining pace. This is turn 4, this is 5, and in the distance is Mercurial Caesar, who is already on the exit of the hairpin of turn 6. Smirch Django joins the drivers participating in a time penalty shootout. He's the latest to be penalized. Teppo Temba trying to keep that gap as minimal as possible. The battle now between the two McLarens. They've just switched positions. Tabo T92 overtaking their teammates to go up to P7. Will Smirch Django make a fight of it? Well, we'll stay on board and see whether or not it's going to be a little bit of a contest. Smirch Django, their season, currently third in the driver's standings, 40 championship points, 2 points behind Mercurial Caesar, who's running away with the sprint race here and is on the way to begin the 10th and final lap of the sprint here in Qatar. Welcome to the Lusail International Circuit. If you've just joined us, ahead of this man, Django, is their teammate. Tabo T92 has just gone wide. Will that be enough for Django to eke out enough of an advantage to be able to effect an overtake? This is the start of the final lap. Do expect Django to deploy some of that battery down towards this main straight. Could he possibly send it on the inside line? He thought about it. Oh, he had to hit the brakes heavily there. Tabo T92 taking a wide line on the exit of turn number 1, but of course it will become the inside line into turn 2. Despite that, Django has effected the overtake, but can he make it stick? Because he's going to be under insane pressure from both Tabo T92 and this man, Man Ray, hunting down that P8 spot, which, remember, in a sprint race is the last position to get a single point. Here before all is said and done. Man Ray wanting to get that P8 and that single point, which will go a long way in the context of the entire season. Hunting down both the McLarens, breaks a little bit later. Man Ray is going to potentially duck onto the inside here. Tabo T92 potentially went completely off the track, but they've all three managed to keep these cars in good nick and in decent contention here. So it's going to be very, very close towards the end here. It might be advantage Man Ray, who dives on the outside of Smirch Django, but does not have enough pace to effect that overtake. Biwax versus Tepiso now in the third and final sector. Mercurial Caesar, meanwhile, we need to give them their applause, because here he comes slaloming towards the line to cross the line in P1 and win the sprint race. Donovan Laka will come home in P2. Teppo Temba will claim that final podium spot here in the sprint race. Zota will come home in P4 from Tepiso. From D-Wax, who try as he might, could not overtake the Ferrari ahead of him. Smirch Django managed to hold his own versus his teammates, and Man Ray, sadly, it was very close, but no cigar. P9 for the Haas driver. Sige, figure of speech, not the greatest of days for them. They were expecting much, much more in the feature race, which is a full 29 laps. Remember, he will come home in that P10 spot. Welcome to Tier 1 of BrakeAway Racing League. It is the feature race in Qatar coming up next. There it is, folks. 8 points for the P1 finishing Mercurial Caesar. Donovan Laka will come home with 7, 6 for Teppo Temba, 5 for Zotal, and all the way down to Tabo T92, who, courtesy of that P8 finish, will claim the single point. What a potential race we have in prospect here, folks. Thank you for joining us. Remember to like the stream if you have not done so already. Would love to hear your thoughts on how you expect this race to go. Former champion Titus says Mercurial has pretty good pace and good strategy can secure him the race win over here. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let us know on the poll that we've got running. Do you think it's a slam dunk win for Mercurial Caesar, or will these drivers make it hell for him over here? He's in a beautiful, beautiful position. He's not going to have it easy. Donathan Laka right behind him, Seppo Temba. They'll give him a lot to think about earlier on. It's a beautiful clear skies under the lights here in Lusail. We will see how Mercurial Caesar will handle all of that, and we're also going to be curious to see what sort of strategies these drivers are going to be running. Some of us were quite surprised last night to see the likes of Simpson, Grimjaw dive into the pits from what looked like an advantageous position. But of course, at the end of the day, it looked to be an inspired decision for both of them, who managed to come home in those podium places. Seaflay, of course, coming home for that P3 last night. What a sensational race that was. And I can't wait to see how the rest of this will play out. Please, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the poll that we've got running and whether or not this is going to be a slam dunk, straightforward race for Mercurial Caesar. We know the quality of drivers here in the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League, and we do urge you, please, to like the stream. Here we go now, 4 lights, 5 lights. The only time South Africans look forward to the lights going out. We're racing in Qatar. It's Mercurial Caesar from Donathan Laka. No jump starts this time round. Who will be brave enough to dive on the inside? Well, try as they might, they're not going to be close enough. It's Donathan Laka holding on by the skin of his teeth. It's very close in the midfield, though. Someone has gone off track. It might be Loveness. The AlphaTauri of London has gone off track. Max has joined the fray, as has Tindo, who will be happy to take part in this race at this particular point. Zotal up to P4. There's a McLaren banging the boards on the side of the track, and one of the Ferraris goes off track. I think that was Cepiso, who will duly be overtaken by Smirch Django to claim that P5 spot. It's Mercurial Caesar from Donathan Laka from Seppo Temba. Zotal in that P4 spot. Smirch Django now up to P5, hunting down the leading pack. Cepiso is still in that P6 spot. Man Ray in P7. Let's take a look at how things have changed thus far. Don Radical not wasting any time. The championship leader has gained 3 places since the start of this race. Mex and Loveness are rounding off the pack here at the back of this long field of drivers that we have over here. On board we go with the champion, who is now hunting down Tabo T92, who was only racing in his first race this entire season. Tabo T92 did not look comfortable in the sprint race at all, and will he be able to keep the onrushing Don Radical at bay? Here they come now towards the final corner, turn number 16. He starts off wide and then tucks onto the inside line. That does Tabo T92. He is still in that advantageous position relative to his competitor. And now let's see Sigfig versus Tindo. Will they go wheel to wheel? Well, almost. Tindo was commandeered to Red Bull today, but not quite close enough to get that move done. Igawako D-Wax is fighting tooth and nail to defend from Don Radical, who has not managed to make a lot of headway over here. As you can see, Don Radical, as I say that, goes wheezing past the AlphaTauri up to P9. So that's a 4-place gain for Don Radical at this particular point in time. Meanwhile, Django not wasting any time either. Now up to P3, hunting down Mercurial Caesar out here in Qatar. And I would have you know that the Mercedes of Mercurial Caesar is having the best time of their life. That gap is now 4.2 seconds as Mex sadly earns himself a 3-second time penalty among the first drivers to do so. Let's take a look at what the thinking is as far as tire strategies are concerned. As you can see, it's a mixed bag. Aggressive strategies by Enwebo, Mandla, Cepiso, Mandray, all of those 4 going for a soft compound of tire. Meanwhile, Django, who we're watching here, is on those mediums and is attacking Donathan Laka. Did they make a little bit of contact there? Could that have cost Django a wing? at this early stage of this race. He's still in the slipstream. He ducked on the inside, and he is now up to P2. And Mercurial Caesar still has that quickest time. Not unexpected. We now have a virtual safety car. I do wonder who that is for. Don is moving, says Debo Crocodile. They're all going to slow down. Racing has effectively been suspended. As you can see, yellow flags all over the track. Not allowed to overtake one another. Charlie 3 Stacks, Charlie 3000 says it is Django unchanged. It is Django up to P2. What a beautiful performance that was. Both the drivers in the top 2 places on mediums. Jonathan Laka Temba going longer on those hards. Oh, and Nebo owns a time penalty for speeding under the safety car, sadly. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. And Quali cheering on at Django. Let me see the 4.2 seconds is the gap between the P1 running Mercurial Caesar and Django. 4.3, so it is building ever so slightly. He's done very, very well, has Smirch Django, trying to catch up to the race leader. The Ferraris are under pressure from Tabo T92 and Man Ray behind them, running in formation, P5 and 6 respectively. This is the vantage point from Zotal, however. Another yellow flag at another part of the track. It's a slow-moving Haas. It might be Mandla down in... I believe on the exit of turn 14 that was. And this, however, is Zotal trying to go for it. And Don Radical on the inside of Man Ray. Will he have it done? Yes, is the answer through the exit of turn number 1. And the next target, of course, is Tabo T92. A battle resuming once again. It wasn't easy for Don Radical last time out to overtake the McLaren ahead. But he's going to look to make a quick work of it this time. He thought about diving on the inside, but did not quite have the pace to be able to be fully ahead of the McLaren through that initial sequence of the quarters. The slow hairpin of turn 6 is where they're now slaloming through, and look at that gap ahead. Mercurial Caesar is really cruising at this particular point, 5.1 seconds ahead of Django, who's trying to catch up. Both those drivers on the mediums. Don Radical also selected that particular compound of tire as well. Running very, very close to each other are all of these drivers here in the top tier. Tabo T92's lines definitely unorthodox compared to some of the drivers within a striking distance of him here. It looks like the Ferraris might just be going on the attack versus Tabo Temba. Oh no! Contact between the 2 Ferraris. Who came off worst? It's Zotal, who goes slipping and sliding, and Tapiso had a little bit of moments of wheel banging with the likes of Tabo T92, but he might be on the verge of being overtaken by Donathan Laka and the McLaren. They're gonna sandwich him in between themselves, but Tabo T92 could not get the move done, and Neville crashes out, and Neville becomes the first casualty of this race, bringing out the full safety car. Tapiso, Don Radical, Tabo T92 under duress, under pressure, and that safety car, which had given this man a over 5 second advantage, will be nullified. Let us see the strategies now, says Peace, aka the Nucho. What will they do? Well, Tindo at the back was already coming into the pits, but of course we are very curious to see what the leading drivers will do at this particular point. Only 5 laps gone here in Qatar. And the poll, which has just ended, had about 62% of you predicting a straightforward win for Mercurial Caesar. But this safety car may yet change things. Interestingly, he opts to stay out. And we do wonder if Django will box opposite his competitor. The answer is no. We'll also keep it running. Mandla, another time penalty here. Jonathan Laka, notably, no need to pit. He started on the hards, remember. But he opts to roll the dice and come into the pits very, very early. It's going to be a fresh set of medium compound tires for the Alfa Romeo driver. Will come out potentially outside of the points or perhaps on the verge there. So he's currently P10 and all the drivers behind him, Tsepiso, Mandre, Mandla, Mex, Mandla as well, coming into the pits. It's a double stack there for Haas. Fresh hards for Manray, and Mandla opts for an identical set of tires as well. There they go now. They will come out possibly in, well, P12 and 13 if they can hang on, or unless Mex surpasses both of them. Can he? No. He finds himself sandwiched, does Mex, in between both of the Hasses. So there you can see, folks, everybody from Donovan Laka, the three drivers, Donovan Laka, Tsepiso, and Manray, opted to come into the pits for those fresh, hard tires. Tindo, sadly, is really struggling out here. It's a pit stop, another pit stop, I would have you know. 2 pit stops already for Tindo, and fits a brand spanking set of mediums. Make that 3 total pit stops. So Tindo at this point may have already been lapped. So Mercurial Caesar is here. All of the top 9 drivers have yet to come into the pits, which does have implications as far as the potential result of this race is concerned. But as a result of all those pits, Don Rabico now finds himself within touching distance of his nemesis and teammate here. So that's a tasty storyline to watch very, very closely. Mercurial is being hunted, so says the Nucho in the comment section. As long as there's safety cars, Mercurial Caesar is within killing range for this man, Don Rabico. So says Billy Hendricks in the comment section. He's going to struggle to pull away courtesy of these safety cars. That is absolutely correct. Fensei in the comment section says, Tindo reminds me of me with all those pit stops last night. It's been 3 up until this point. Tindo not having the greatest of races. Since the start of the feature race, it's been a net 5-place gain for Smirch Django. One of the biggest movers, but by far the biggest mover, courtesy, of course, of factors such as the safety car, is Don Rabico, who has gained 9 places. Loveness has gained 4. He's currently in that P8 spot. Sadly, Loveness had that huge moment earlier on, but managed to pick up the pieces and get himself back together. Tato Loveness, he's no stranger to applying pressure and really surging through the field in the right conditions. Do not count this man out. He's got a solid teammate this year in the form of Inkawako, aka D-Wax, and they're looking to put together a decent season for their prospects. Loveness currently midway through the pack in the driver standings. P9, as things currently stand, is Loveness, and Inkawako. D-Wax had a bit of a slow start, has yet to collect any points. He crashed out in Baku last time out and could not start the first 2 races of the season. So D-Wax with some work to do. Django with a firm target in sight. Django versus Mercurial Caesar. This man in Mercedes has been the class of the field in both the sprint and the feature race so far. Made light work of the field, really surged through and found himself in the lead. Shortly after the halfway point of the sprint race, and it's been beautifully done. Mercurial Caesar from Smirch Django from Teplo Temba. Don Rabico is 4th, Tabo T92 is 5th, Zoltal 6th, D-Wax 7th, Loveness is 8th, Sige Figure of Speech is currently P9 from Donovan Laka, Tsepiso, and Manray rounding off the pack. When will Mercurial Caesar, because the safety car, when will Mercurial Caesar send it? Because the safety car has, of course, come in, and it is up to Mercurial Caesar to decide when to send it. No, the safety car is still out on track, funny enough, even though race control did give the word. As you can see on the track map, it's a little bit of a weird scenario here. Now is the time that Caesar has decided to send it. How close are all of the drivers in the leading in contention for the race lead? The answer is very close, and Don Ravico is trying not to get held up by the Williams ahead. Seppo Tempo, of course, will not make it easy. There are no free positions on the top tier of Breakaway League Racing. If you want it, you were going to have to earn it. You're going to have to claim it, essentially. Well, they've slowed down once again. I believe the safety car is still out on track. So that was a bit of a weird moment there, because I saw the safety car, even though it hadn't come in. So I can assume that it'll only come in now at the end of lap 8 to begin lap 9. Let's take a look at the tire situation again. Soon to be 8-lap-old tires for the top 9, and Donovan Laka ignoring the yellow flag. That's a 5-second time penalty. Early on, that is not what you would have wanted at all. 5 seconds for Don Mex, struggling. 8-second time penalty for a driver who is usually brimming with pace at many a circuit, but today not having such a great time. So Mex, work to do outside the points currently. Remember, only the top 10 drivers earn points. Mex will have their work cut out for him. Here they come now towards turns 14, 15, and 16. And the slow-moving safety car better get out of the way because we want to reignite the competition. Will Mercurial send it earlier than these guys expect? The answer is yes. He is gone. 6/10 ahead, 7/10 ahead, and here comes Seppo Temba trying to respond, trying to recover. Don Ravico will be using all of that battery. Remember, no DRS for the first couple of laps. After the safety car, who will be braver on the brakes? Don Ravico opting not to take unnecessary risks at this particular point. All of the top 4 already eking out an advantage of more than a second. On the inside goes Don Ravico, and it's a clean overtake done on the Williams behind him. Seppo Tempa now going to have to fight back as he's going to look to hang on to the coattails of the Mercedes ahead of him to give him a little bit of slipstream to catch up to the top 2 drivers. Snurch Django is not being shaken off at this early stage of the restart. Mercurial Caesar still in the lead by a factor of less than half a second. So not so straightforward this time round compared to the start of the feature race, where Mercurial Caesar quickly eked out a gap of much more than a second in very quick succession. On board we go with the P2 running Smirch Django, who loses a little bit of ground. That gap, which was less than half a second, now ekes out to about 6/10 or thereabouts. Smirch Django flat out here through Sector 3. Oh no, he goes off the track and earns his first time penalty of the day for track limit incursions. How much will that cost him when all is said and done at the end of proceedings here? Time will tell, but for now, Smirch Django is going to have to shake it off and hunt down the race leader. It is, of course, a 3-way fight. Don't forget, do not count out Don Ravico, who himself has designs on fighting it out with the race leader. Loveness has just overtaken their teammate Ngobako Dwax on the main straight, and here he comes in towards turn number 1 to potentially drag Dwax along as they try to get out of the clutches of Donathon Laka behind them. We're going to hop on board with the Alfa Romeo driver, who has the company of Tapiso behind him, but that gap slowly but surely extending as things currently stand. Now, remember, Donathon Laka is among the drivers who has already pitted, as has Tapiso. So Nucho's asking who the leader is if they decide to come into the pits soon. The top drivers, well, this man, Donathon Laka, would find himself snaking or slaloming further and further ahead. Here it comes now through Sector 3. Dwax is not going to make it easy. And as he was flat out through those corners, of course, it looks like Dwax possibly might have been lifting off the throttle, meaning Donathon Laka could inch even closer But as I say that, he abandons the chase and comes into the pits for another stop. Oh, Django has just been overtaken by Don Radical in the run towards turn 1. And here we go now. The Mercedes fight is back on for the win, for the lead of this race. 1.5 seconds is the gap now between the two teammates. Don Radical, having just overtaken Smirch Django, is now hunting down his own teammate. Let's catch up with Seppo Temba, who is on the verge of giving the other McLaren, that being Tabo T92, a lot of hell here. Hairpin, turn 6, Tabo T92. Can you get a decent exit? The answer is yes. Don Radical has to push now, says Charlie 3 Stats, Charlie 3000. Here we go, says Azuri in the comment section, expecting a tasty tussle between the leading pair down at Team Mercedes, giving us some sensational entertainment all throughout this season. Seppo Temba tries, he might just have to bide his time all the way until the main straight. But can't afford to waste time. Zoltal is not going to pass up an opportunity to get past here. Let's take a look at the telemetry situation. This is Zoltal deploying battery, deploying DRS, and diving onto the inside line of Seppo Temba. That straight line speed, superb by the Ferrari, who now is up to P5. Seppo Temba slowly but surely just slipping further and further down the track. Was in a great position earlier on, is going to have his work cut out for him at this particular point. Tabo T92 hanging on to that P4 spot, but that gap to his teammate might just be concerning to him. Work cut out for Tabo T92. D-Wax earns a time penalty for track limits incursions at this particular point. Tindo is hunting down Man Ray. Let's hop on board with this battle. Effectively for P9, ahead of Tindo is Man Ray, and then it is Ngawako D-Wax. Man Ray, D-Wax. Man Ray has the inside line on D-Wax. But the exit wasn't so clean. Was blocked, of course, by the AlphaTauri ahead. And Tindo almost had a golden opportunity to overtake the Haas ahead of him. We're going to be catching up with the action in the front in due course. Oh, it's contact. Tindo crashes into the back of Man Ray there. Did he suffer wing damage, I wonder, Tindo? He is, of course, an Alpine driver driving a Red Bull here today, but has to ease off and slip further and further behind Man Ray, who is looking very, very good, very, very racy as Man Ray seems to be very comfortable around these parts. D-Wax not as confident through that corner, and there goes Man Ray past Ngawako, aka D-Wax, who finally comes into the pit on those aging medium compound tires. Zoltal still trying to pile the pressure on Seppo Temba. It's been an interesting battle that these two have had. Zoltal was ahead, but Seppo Temba managed to fight back. Now back up to P5 is Seppo Temba. Which Mercedes will pit first, asks Wandal Shezi in the comment section. A pertinent question, of course, as we're now into the 13th lap. Would have you know that the Mercedes are still going around. Mex sets the fastest lap of this race on those brand new soft compound tires, and it is a game of differing strategies, a game of wits at this particular point as we approach the halfway mark of this featured race. Zoltal having hunted down Seppo Temba there. Don Radical 1.3 seconds behind their teammate now. I do wonder who will blink first. Down to about 13% of his battery power compared to Mercurial Caesar's 29%. Looking very comfortable is Caesar, and Don Radical sends it into the pits. So he's looking very, very comfortable, is the race leader. Both Don Radical and Smirch Django opting to pit at this particular point. And Mercurial Caesar feeling comfortable enough, not necessarily to drain that battery, as he would have noted, of course, that his teammates and Django have just come into the pit. It's been cool, composed, collected, and completely in control from Mercurial Caesar in this race thus far. Don Radical and Smirch Django have come out, currently P9 and 10. Now Mandla will try and catch up to overtake one of them, and he does. Mandla sandwiches himself between Don Radical and Smirch Django, who have just come out of the pits on a brand spanking set of hard compound tires. When someone has, well, it's Zotal up to P2, courtesy of those drivers who have just pitted. He did manage to overtake his competitor, that being Tepo Temba. Mercurial Caesar still keeping it out on track, knowing now that he's got a heck of a buffer. This is the gap between Mercurial Caesar and pretty much the rest of the field. Daylight. Here he comes now to finally pit for a tire compound that we will watch very, very closely. As you can see on the track map, he's so far ahead of the rest of his competitors. I do wonder if Zotal will follow suit and pit now. Same tire compound as Don Ravico, who was 24 seconds behind the Mercurial Caesar at that point, and will hope to be close enough to be able to give Mercurial Caesar a heck of a battle and be much closer at pit exit. The answer is he will come out just marginally behind his teammate, who will try to defend, but there go wheel to wheel at the exit of the pit corner, and Don Rabico has the inside line into turn 2. Don Rabico is ahead of his teammate, now up to P7, so it was a titanic outlap by Don Rabico, who you must remember was about 1.2 seconds when he came, 1.2 seconds behind Mercurial Caesar when he came into the pits. So the undercut has paid off for Don Rabico. And now, on a colder set of hard compound tires, Mercurial Caesar, it is your turn to fight back. Who has the ultimate pace? At this particular point in time when all is said and done, Mercurial Caesar is about 11 seconds behind the race-leading Zotal, who opted to stay out on those aging mediums for one more lap. Yes, overtook in turn 1, but Mercurial Caesar, being Mercurial Caesar, will not let it lie. Here he goes on the attack. We'll have DRS. Will he go on the other side of Man Ray? No, he opts to go on the inside of both the Haas and his teammate. Is that a mistake by Mercurial Caesar? He will trust his pace. Here he is now. It's going to be wheel-to-wheel action towards turn number 1. Mercurial Caesar, does he have the line? Yes, he does. But Don Ravico will have the inside of turn number 2. Oh, Man Ray goes spinning off the track at that point as he tried to keep pace with the leading pack, but he did not have the sauce, did not have the pace. Man Ray, I do wonder how much damage he would have suffered at this particular point. Moody is praying for a safety car for Zotal. This is the battle, remember, for the potential for the net race lead here. Tabo T92 has yet to pit. He's about 4 seconds down the road. Don Ravico now looking to stay in touch with their teammate. Half a second separating these drivers, now running P2 and P3 respectively. Nintendo Wii, Mex's biggest cheerleader, is back in the comment section, cheering on the Alpine driver who is currently in that P6 spot on those soft compound tires. If another safety car comes out of this particular point, I'll tell you what, I will be absolutely excited to see how these guys play it. It seems that the pace advantage is firmly in the hands of Mercurial Caesar all throughout this track here. Try as he might, Don Ravico not quite able to stay as close on the coattails of his teammates as he would want at this point. 0.8 is the gap between these two as he deploys a little bit of battery power to try and catch up there to the net race leader, who is inching closer and closer to Tabo T92, who stubbornly is refusing to pit those aging medium compound tires. It's Mercurial Caesar who very, very soon will re-establish the lead of this race. Meanwhile, Loveness versus Zotal is up to P7. The AlphaTauri driver has just overtaken Zotal, who, remember, has just exited the pits on that fresh set of hard compound tires. Tepo Temba trying to stay in touch with both Zotal and Loveness at this particular point. Down in the battle of the lower midfield, it is Sage Figure of Speech versus Donathan Laka, who vowed never to, race, or never to come to an online gaming lobby in a slightly inebriated state. considering how things went last time out. We know Jonathan Laka does have a lot of pace in the bag, struggled last time out. This time also not quite having such a great time as he tries to keep this man, Sage, figure of speech, off his back and tries to alleviate that pressure. Down towards the back of the pack, it is Igawako, aka D-Wax, on those 4-lap old hards. And then we have Tepiso down in P14. Mandla rounds off the back of this field in P15. This man, Mandla, really struggling. He's had 3 consecutive DNFs to start his brand new season. Mandla is really having a hard time here in this new look Tier 1 and has his work cut out for him if he is to maintain his seat for next season and beyond. 3 consecutive DNFs, it's 0 points for Mandla at this particular point in time. Let's catch up back with the midfield battle. Looks like Sage figure of speech has just come into the pit. Tabo T92 eventually pitted. It's a fresh set of soft tires for him in that McLaren, currently running in P9. Smirch Django is in that P3 spot. He pitted at the same lap as Don Radical. This is a potentially beautiful 4-way fight that we've got here. Seppo Temba almost making contact with the back of Zotal. Who's this closer and closer? Oh no, who's that spinning? It's Loveness who made contact, it seems, with Max. They both went completely off the track and they're both tumbling down the order. Huge moment of contact costing both of them potentially a finish in the points places here. Max rage quitting. He quits, does Max, quitting in anger, perhaps not trusting the rest of their prospects from now to the end of proceedings here. Man, that is a sad state of affairs there. Sadly, Max retiring from this race. Seppo Temba versus Zotail. It could have been a 4-way fight, including Loveness and Mex, had they not made that huge moment of contact there. Nintendo Wii, Mex's biggest cheerleader, is incredulous in the comment section. Heartbroken. Zotal is flashing. Seppo Temba smells blood. Also does not have the most battery power in the world. But we'll trust that he will have a decent chance here. Caboza says Mex disconnected, so hopefully we'll see him back in this race here. Seppo Temba versus Zotal, a battle which has raged on here for a very long time throughout this race. With 10 laps of racing to go, it is effectively a battle for P5, considering that Man Ray is way ahead of them, way down the road, about almost 4 seconds down the road there. But sadly for Man Ray, he's slipping further and further behind the leading trio. What a beautiful result this could be for Man Ray if he could hang on for these remaining laps. Seppo Temba trying to apply the pressure versus the Ferrari ahead. Zotal is going to be under pressure from 2 total drivers because Tabo T92 has caught up to this battle for P5 now. And Seppo Temba tries to make the car as wide as possible. Who will have the line? Now, Tabo T92 opts not to take unnecessary risks here. Here they come now, hurtling towards turn 16, the final corner. And look at that, Tabo T92 has a significant battery advantage to both these drivers who were flashing at some point. Seppo Temba is flashing. Tabo T92 says, whatever, try to fend the inside, but I will just breeze past you on the outside. And he overtakes the both of them. Or does he? Well, they ban wheels here. It's Tabo T92 on the outside, which will turn it to the inside to turn 2. It's a sensational overtake of 2 cars here by Tabo T92. It's the fight back of his life. The McLaren driver is surging ahead of both Zotal and Seppo Temba with a significant battery advantage. You must remember. Sensational stuff by Tabo T92. It's his debut race of this new look Tier 1 field over here. And further ahead, of course, as Enquali notes, Mercurial Caesar is moving that gap between himself and his nemesis teammate 1.7 seconds. So Mercurial Caesar fighting back and showing his class versus Django and Don Radical, who have had no answer to his pace thus far. Brilliant, beautiful stuff over here. It's Seppo Temba trying to hunt down Zotal, who is flashing at this particular point, and he dares not slip out of the DRS of those drivers ahead of him. Tabo T92 has reeled in Man Ray who has done a stellar job of trying to hang on to that P4 spot. It's another time penalty for Man Ray in this time penalty shootout over here. And Capoza is, of course, remarking what a job Man Ray has done up until this point. But sadly for Man Ray, too much of an advantage that Tabo T92 has. Dives on the inside, and he is now up to P4. It is McLaren and Mercedes driving in formation. Mercurial Caesar, Don Ravico makes it a Mercedes 1-2, and it's a McLaren 3-4 over here in this beautifully entertaining race here in the top tier of the BrakeAway League Racing. If you've just joined us, you have missed out up until this point on a sensationally entertaining showcase in the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League. Tabo T92 pitted very, very late, of course, and is now reaping the rewards of these soft tires and this final portion of this race. Still a lot of racing to go, remember. Zotal still trying to slug it out versus Seppo Temba. And Man Ray ahead. Seppo Temba dives on the inside of Man Ray over here through the left-hander, and he's got that move done. Man Ray closes the door on Zotal, who switches to the outside line, which becomes the inside line, and Zotal is now ahead of Man Ray, who, despite the valiant effort, now finds himself in P7. And Man Ray is going to hope and pray that that 7.5 second buffer between himself and Tindo behind stays that way, because a P7 spot, well, is not going to be enough. Aging medium compound tires, Man Ray finally comes into the pit. I would remind you that Man Ray, before the start of this race, had just 2 championship points and was in 14th place in the BrakeAway Racing League ladder. Both Man Ray and Tindo behind coming into the pits then. Well, Zotal and Tempo Temba on a different tire compound to one another, mediums versus hards, are going to stay within touching distance of one another over here. And 2 other drivers running in formation, also within touching distance, are Igawako D-Wax versus Loveness. That is Tato, of course, running into P7 and 8, respectively. On board we go with D-Wax, with about 7 laps of racing still to go. What can he do here as he tries to recover a semblance of momentum here in what has been a horrible season by his lofty standards? Oh, slight twitch of the rear there by Loveness ahead of him. D-Wax will smell blood. D-Wax dives on the inside. D-Wax through turn 6 is ahead of his teammate. But will Loveness fight off this overtake hard? You can't expect that from Loveness. He does not go down without a fight. It's Thursday action night. It's the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League here, and it's the AlphaTauri driver looking to fight back immediately and not fall too far behind their teammate. But as I say that, D-Wax ekes out an 8/10 advantage to their teammates. Down in the lower midfield, Donovan Laka trying to put Sid's figure of speech under pressure over here. They're running in P11 and 12 respectively. So, the field as currently stands, it's Mercurial Caesar from Don Ravico. But we'll get back to that action because I'll tell you what, it's a 3-way fight here. Don Ravico, Sid's figure of speech, and Romeo, a.k.a. Mandla, who has yet to claim a point. 3 consecutive DNFs, and Mandla is in 6s and 7s. He goes off track there at that through that fast corner, and Sid's figure of speech is not going to let this fly. He is going to look to overtake Mandla as quickly as possible. Sadly, Mandla was in the points. Mandla defenseless as he's going to come under attack, possibly from both sides. No, they both dive on the inside of the Haas, and Mandla slips down the order to P12 at this particular point, and he will have his teammate for company. It's going to be Man Ray who is going to look to potentially overtake Mandla and fight back here. But Sid's figure of speech versus Donovan Laka, they're wheel to wheel. They're very close. They almost make a little bit of contact here. On board we go with Donovan Laka. This is the battle for that 10th and final podium spot. Sid's figure of speech takes advantage of Donovan Laka's slight mistake there as far as his line is concerned. Here they come now through turn number 6. And they're very, very close. But it's going to be close, but no cigar potentially for Donovan Laka, who needs to find himself back in the points before too long. He's got 27 points before the start of today, did Donovan Laka. He added a decent haul of points in the sprint race, which will go a long way, of course, in the context of the season. Oh, slight twitch there of the rear by Sid's figure of speech as Donovan Laka comes within 3/10 of the Red Bull ahead of him. Somewhere in South Africa, in fact, in Cape Town specifically, The 86er Galalet Sang, who is down in Cape Town from Lurie Awards, will be hoping that his teammate Sidge Figure of Speech puts on an award-winning performance, but he flashes, and as he does so, he is vulnerable to the Alfa Romeo that slips on the inside in the run towards turn 1. Golden overtaking opportunity taken coolly, calmly by Donathan Laka. What a race it's been for Mercurial Caesar in firm command and control of this race. Has eked out a very, very good buffer of more than 2.5 seconds to their teammate up until this particular point. And as you can see, is trying to make sure that he has a little bit of battery power in the bank so that he's able to defend if Don Ravico somehow manages to bridge that gap closer and closer. At this particular point, Don Ravico, usually a master of managing that battery power, but today, of course, the pace advantage firmly in the hands of Mercurial Caesar, as Don Ravico has had to use all of that battery power and all of his wiles, all of his wits to take or to try and stay in touch, and that gap now hovering at around the 3-second mark. So no time penalties for each of the top 2 drivers, but Smurch, Django, Tabo, T92 running in formation have 3-second time penalties each. Tapo Temba is being hunted down by Zotal, who's done very well not to have racked up any penalties of his own. He's within a second of Tapo Temba and has no time penalties. Tapo Temba 6 seconds, and Gawako, D-Wax, and Loveness both have 6 seconds each. Tapiso, despite those issues which saw him tumbling way down the order much earlier on in the race, has found himself back in the reckoning for another points haul here, a couple of points for that P9 potential finish. Tapiso has not had the greatest of starts to his brand new Tier 1 career. He he crashed out in Saudi Arabia and in Baku, did Tapiso. Was reeling. He might have had a decent result in Baku were it not for that DNF. But Tapiso is going to have his work cut out for him. P9, as things currently stand, Donathan Laka, his points tally sees him currently 5th in the driver's standings. The man with the most penalties out of the points and coming off the back of 3 consecutive DNFs is Mandla. 9 seconds worth of time penalties in what has surely been a nightmare. A season to forget for the veteran Tier 1 driver who has been a part of the furniture in the top tier for very, very long, but will not want to find himself in the playoffs. He vowed, a long time ago, he vowed never to compete or never to find himself within the playoffs. Well, right now, he's going to find himself potentially all the way at the back of the pack. Mex is on the prowl and looking to affect this overtake in towards turns 1 and 2. Mandla hangs on ever so briefly, but it's not going to be straightforward at all. Mex, of course, is the driver who is quite used to finishing within the points. He finished 4th in China, did Mex, and matched that result in Baku last time out. He's got 24 total championship points, does Mex, but today is really struggling. Meanwhile, drama at the front because Don Ravico has opted to roll the dice here and come into the pits for a set of softs, perhaps just wanting to deny his teammate that fastest lap at this particular point. As you can see, that mantle currently belongs to Mex, who claimed the fastest lap a long time ago. A 1 minute 23.607 was the fastest lap claimed by Mex long ago, and Loveness becomes the second casualty to crash out of this race. But with just 2 laps of racing to go, sadly for Don Ravico, he would have loved a safety car, but it is way too late for the safety car to be called at this particular point. I wonder if Loveness might have opted to retire in the pits there. It looks like that might have been the case here. And sadly, Don Ravico would have loved a safety car. But at this particular point, he's just pushing for the fastest lap of this race from that P3 spot. Smirch Django is currently in that P2 spot, but the gap between himself and the leader of this race, who is running away with it at this particular point, is massive, 21 seconds. But when all is said and done, Don Rabico might just come within 3 seconds of that McLaren, of course, because Django has that time penalty for track limit incursions. Meanwhile, down in P10, Sage Figure of Speech versus Tapiso. 9-lap versus 11-lap old medium compound tires. As Buddha says, that pit stop makes absolutely no sense. I don't know why Don Rabico did that, says Buddha down there. Perhaps Don Rabico waving the proverbial white flag as far as today's race pace is concerned. Sage Figure of Speech on the outside of Tapiso, and he's going to be up to P9, or will he? Because Tapiso will hold that line and does not have enough in the bag. So Tapiso now down to P10, and Mandla retires from this race in the pits, and that is the 4th consecutive DNF, a voluntary DNF by Mandla over here, as Don Rabico has just overtaken Smirts Django. Mandla, 0 points, and every participation has been a DNF by Mandla, sadly, who may yet, depending on how the rest of the season goes, may yet be heading straight down towards Tier 2 if this terrible momentum is maintained. Don Rabico, it's a job done for him as far as getting that extra point is concerned. Look at that. He gets a 3-second time penalty to boot. So that'll give Smirts Django hope, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to have the pace considering that tire deficit. Mercurial Caesar has been peerless. Absolutely peerless in this race. It is a track in which he has been nothing short of dominant all the way from start to finish. Looks like one of the closest drivers is going to be Donathan Laka versus D-Wax. Now up to P7. He's just effected an overtake on the first corner as he begins the final lap of this race. Mercurial Caesar has no fuel, says definitely Duke. No, he definitely does have the fuel. And it looks like he is taunting his competitor. He's completely slowed down, giving him hope. And he slaloms. And he wins the Qatar Grand Prix in dominant fashion over here. It's been close in other races, but try as he might, Don Rabico could only contend with P2 when all was said and done. Smirts Django will bring it home for P3 at the end of the day, and Tabo T92, racing for the first time today, crosses the line P4, but no, that position eventually goes to Zoltau, courtesy of Tabo T92's many time penalties. Tepo Temba crosses the line in P6, and Donathan Laka's recovery drive will be P7 at the end of the day. Donathan Laka back among the points as D-Wax and Sage Figure of Speech are going to fight for it towards the line. Sage Fig takes it versus D-Wax, who has to contend with P9, which becomes P10 courtesy of time penalties. So Tapiso claims that P9 spot, and D-Wax will be the final driver to finish in the points. It's 0 championship points for Tindo, sadly, who will have to contend with P11. Mex comes home in P12, and Man Ray, who had a huge effort earlier on in the race, could only come home at the back of the field in P13. What a sensationally entertaining race that was. Driver of the day, Don Rabico. Is Don Rabico your driver of the day? Is it Mercurial Caesar? Is it some of the other drivers who had to recover? Let us know in the comments section. Man, oh man, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Charlie 3 Stacks earlier on could barely believe that Man Ray was in P4 after that huge spin earlier on. Mandela fought the good fight, says the Nucho in the comments section. Django and Don are the teammates here, says Nkweli in the comments section. Definitely Duke responding to Mercurial Caesar's celebrations earlier on. We've never had Mercurial Caesar in these comment section. I'm going to see if we can get him on here. But that is it, folks. At the end of this weekend, 33 points for Mercurial Caesar. 33 total points, 19 for Don Rabico, 17 for Zotal, as is the case for Django. Tepo Temba, very good haul of points, 14 today. Donathan Laka claims 13, and 11 for Tabotina and 2. Tapiso goes home with 6 points at the end of all proceedings today. 4 for D-Wax, and 4 points as well for Sage Figure of Speech. What a sensationally entertaining race we have had here today. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Nintendo Wii says unlucky there, Mex, for not being able to claim any points. But let us talk to the man, the driver who came home in P3 and is one of the first to join us in the comments section. It is Smirch Django. Congratulations, sir. Take us through that race. Mercurial Caesar seemed to have too much pace for you guys here today, but still P3, a very, very good points haul. How does that feel, sir?
Evening, Ty. Yeah, today was a tough day, but P3 will take it. So I think due to incidents that happened, there was a lot of. Actually, I want to talk about the racing craft in our league. I think it's high time we speak about incidents that happen, and I think they shouldn't have happened because you know who you're fighting and you know very well who's your battle. But when you try to do funny moves on somebody that you know very well that he's faster, or like you saw even in the end there, I had a 3 seconds penalty and Don was coming with the soft, so I knew there's no way I should fight this guy or try to ruin his race by trying to fight hard. So I just moved to the left so that he can pass. But I don't think guys understand that. I don't think they know who they're fighting, and I think it's high time we speak about the racing craft. It's quite crazy. They broke my wing in the sprint, and then they broke my wing again in the race. So it was quite disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah, we saw that incident, or rather, we saw the aftermath with the broken wing during the sprint there, which of course did have implications in terms of where you ended up starting. Could you just take us through, number one, how you managed to fight your way up towards the front of the pack during the feature race? And how you found that? Did you receive similar challenges? Did you find yourself having to duck wider, so to speak?
Yeah, it was quite difficult. Hence, I think I used a lot of my ERS trying to maneuver around the field, because I think everyone just wants to dust their ERS on the home straight. But fortunate enough, I nearly broke my wing, and I nearly clamped Zotal in the back. But Zotal is a clean driver, so he knew what to do. But then on the second stint in the hard, because my plan was, I saw that these guys are way faster today, so I was like, okay, cool, I will try to finish my ERS in the first stint so that I can try and undercut. And then when I tried to do that, there was traffic, and I don't know who it was, but yeah, they broke my wing, and my wing was yellow, so I couldn't afford to pit as well.
Ah, man. Managed to hang on towards the end there for a podium place, despite those challenges. As you say, hopefully that is something that can be addressed, because, of course, it does have major implications for your race results. Someone who had to contend with an infuriating incident in the sprint race. We saw him make a contact with I believe it was a Tapiso, and then go into the wall in the sprint. Don Rabico managed to claw his way through the field eventually to come home in P2. Congratulations, sir. Take us through your race and eventually your fight back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we do this reverse crit and we have to fight through the field with guys that don't really know how to control their car. The guy's car, it's all over the place, makes it very dangerous to overtake. Nonetheless, we got through them in the end, and we got a good P2. Congratulations to Mercurial, was a good drive. On to Spain.
On to Spain. Take us through that battle with the Mercurial Caesar. By the time you found your way up towards the top runners in the feature race, we were expecting an interesting battle. You managed to hang on there, but where exactly was the difference in pace? Which sectors could you identify maybe that you were struggling to hang on to his coattails there?
I think the pace was very equal. The problem is getting through the field. I had to use a lot of ERS, and then I was left with no ERS. And in Qatar, if you use too much ERS, you're not going to recharge it back. So I think it was just managing to use some of his ERS to pull it up. But the pace was very, very similar. I mean, there's nothing. I drove my best. He drove his best. He was the better man today. That's all.
Well, still good to see. Can't wait to see how you guys fare in Spain. Is it a track where you feel confident, Django? And then I'll come to you, Don Rabico, as well.
Yeah, so fortunate enough, Spain, we've had a little bit of practice. We're familiar with Spain, and hopefully it's going to be a proper fight next weekend. This weekend, I think both these Mercedes had way too much pace, and we shall see them in Catalonia.
And your quali pace in Spain as well as your race pace, Don Rabico?
Yeah, no, Spain, good track. Not a bad track. I like Spain. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens indeed. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Once again, putting on a heck of a show here, clawing your way through the field, surviving heavy incidents, but still you made your way towards the podium, and the battle for the championship is really hotting up, and I know it is very close between all three of you, with some of the chasing pack also trying to stay in touch. So we will see you next week, Thursday, in Spain. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So before we end the stream, let me just catch up with the last of your comments. Titus says congratulations to everyone who finished in the points. It is so difficult to claim points in this tier. Points are very hard to earn. Man Ray saying, you know what, I lost concentration and spun. That's how I lost all of that momentum. Man Ray also saying, when I was in P3 at some point, I thought there was a glitch. Very surprised. Thank you, Wendell Chezi, for being in the comment section. And the Nucho as well says, Man Ray, flames from Mercedes, and Don, that's what made you spin. Nintendo Wii has been cheering on Mex, of course. Thank you, Debo Croc and Azuri, and the Nucho is also in the comment section. Capoza and Quali and Charlie 3000, as well as Mfundo, who we've also seen over here. Kid K was also represented in the comments, as of course was Grimjaw, who was saying City Boy Rabico, cheering on Grimjaw in the comments there. So really looking forward to the race in Spain. And as this season concludes, this will of course be the last season this year before the end of November, December. And then when we pick it up early next year, who knows? It might be Grimjaw versus Don Rabico versus Django. That would be a beautiful tier 1 field as well. Thank you everyone for taking part, and please remember to like the stream just before we end it, and keep an eye out for tier 2 action next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central African time, right here on our YouTube. Thank you everybody, and good night.
Cheers.